LinkedIn. We will be starting in about 2 minutes. Right now, we're doing a sound check and we're also doing a visual check and make sure everything is working properly. So just hang in for a minute and we'll be starting in about 2 minutes flat.
Charles will make sure that we're up and live in the groups.
Okay.
I don't know if we can see that. Are you seeing it?
Not yet because we are still pushing it out. I'll let you know when we pushed it out to your people.
Cool.
Welcome back to the YouTube channel. My name's Chris. I'm a videographer, photographer, and YouTuber. And I make all sorts of videos from product reviews to demos to how-tos to just me sat here.
Okay, we got that out of the way. Let's get the YouTube up. And 5 stations. Unfortunately, when you do all these different broadcasts and pushing it out to all the different sites, it can cause a lag in your computer. So we are good to go there. It's streaming there. Oh, yes, I see you on Facebook, and now I'm going to share it to your sites right now, Josh.
Sweet.
Okay.
Taking a look.
Okay, I just sent it to DMV now. So
All right.
try to refresh it now. I'm going to send it over to you.
See if I see you. Yeah, I see it, Charles. I see us with the lag on there. I got you.
No problem. Like I said, we will be starting in about 60 seconds flat. So thank you guys for tuning in. We're just basically taking care of some little technical stuff. Josh, I just sent it to your timeline, my friend.
Sweet. Let me take a look. I'm not. I see it now. I got you.
And last but not least, let's take it on YouTube, see what we look like. You guys are going to be really in for a treat because me and Josh was talking about this presentation a couple days ago, how we're going to really spill our guts to you guys. And I think you guys will really, really enjoy the conversation. Now, keep this in mind. The key to this conversation is to make it a two-way street. Yes, we will be communicating with each other and so on, but we desperately need your input as well because that's what's going to make it really special by basically you guys chiming in and giving us your actual thoughts, what's going on in the market, as well as what we're talking about and so on. Josh, you want to add anything to that?
No, that makes sense to me. I think one of our big focuses today is going to be all about, I've heard a lot of people talk in general about COVID-19 and the impact, but nobody's really talking about what specifically you as an investor can do right now. I do know personally from my own experience, you got a lot of folks that are just really scared right now and sitting at home with sort of analysis paralysis. So I think a lot of what we'll be doing today is, how do we get beyond the fear and start being productive again?
Exactly. And that's the key right now. There's so much going on. People are really fearful. And I've had a lot of investors contact me about whether they should continue, whether they should put it on hold. What about you?
Absolutely. I mean, personally, what I'm seeing right now is that I would estimate maybe 90% of the folks I know are not doing anything right now. I've been hearing that from top realtors that I know even too, that,
Mm-hmm.
they're cold calling right now, for example, and the cold call competition has dropped to almost zero. You got folks making calls where before it was like 3 or 4 people touching the same person.
Yeah,
And right now these sellers are hearing crickets. So I think you got a 90% fall off of people actually trying to generate business right now.
I agree with you, man. I agree with you a lot. Now, first of all, I want to thank Kay for being on the broadcast on YouTube. William, thank you for being on the broadcast. Michelle, John, thank you guys for being on the broadcast. Let's see, on Facebook, we have Minion, thank you for being on the broadcast. Elise, thank you for being on the broadcast. Instagram, Josh, thank you for being on the broadcast. Greg, thank you for being on the broadcast. I mean, everybody is starting to come in now, so we'll give them about 1 more minute. Just get those questions ready, guys, because we will be here for a full hour. So we are here to answer any and all questions. I'm in the Maryland, Baltimore region. Josh is in DC, Virginia region. So we got you guys covered any which way you want to turn.
Charles, I have to say one thing before we start this whole conversation off. I mean, of that 10% crowd that's still investing right now, I would say they're picking their game up. And those same people that have been around for like, 8, 10 plus years, those people are licking their chops right now. They're going all in. And it's that other 90% maybe hasn't seen a downturn like this before is really, freaked out.
Yeah, I agree with you. We talked about this a couple of days ago, and we used the analogy of new money and old money. New money being new investors, new real estate agents, new title companies, and so on. Old money being older investors, older title companies, older real estate investors, and hard money lenders. And the new money is running. They're hiding. They are absolutely don't know what to do in this actual pandemic. And the old money is liquid. The old money has the money there. They've been through 2008. They've been through 1998, so they know what's going on or how to break from what's happening now, and they also have a good feeling of what's going to happen next. And that's what we're going to be going through today. We're going to give you 3 different degrees of temperature. We're going to give you the before temperature, we're going to give you the during temperature, and we're going to give you the after COVID-19 temperature. But first and foremost, let us introduce ourselves. Josh, let everybody know who exactly is Josh Cohen and DC First Properties.
Hey guys, so I've been an investor in the DC region since about 2008. Today we've coined ourselves DC First Properties as what we call an affordable luxury builder. We're a Class A licensed builder in-house for commercial and residential, but pretty much everything that we do is a spec build. So, especially for the last 3 or 4 years, all we've done for the most part is, we buy infill lots, redevelop them with new construction, and we're selling at what we call affordable price points in great locations in Northern Virginia. So under 1.1 million brand new homes. I started my career like a lot of other guys, a lot of other folks, did some wholesaling in the beginning, did some rehabbing in the beginning, and then that sort of transitioned over the years to like a very niche business that, we felt we could really make a go of, and that's where we are today. Although we are adding a big sort of wholesaling component for the last, I would say 8 or 9 months now. So we do a lot of wholesale stuff as well at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm also the leader of DMV Dealmakers, which we've had that meetup group for about 4.5 years now. Probably the biggest meetup in the Washington, D.C., maybe Northern Virginia part of the city. And we have a lot of active folks who are serious investors. We have some new investors,
Right.
just a wide dynamic of folks.
Excellent, man. And for those of you who don't know who I am Charles Blair. I'm commonly known as the Mad Scientist. We are Chucky by Lucky Houses. That is my real estate investment company. I also have the education side of my business, which is the Real Deal Meetup, and the consulting side of my business, which is Page One Success. On the real estate investing side, we're currently investing in 6 markets. Our main market is Maryland, D.C. We don't do anything in Virginia, although I would love to get into your market, my brother Josh. So I just want to let you know that. We're basically in Ohio. We're also in Jacksonville, and we're in Houston. So those are the markets that we're currently investing in. In the Maryland, D.C., Virginia area, we're doing everything from wholesale and rehabbing, buying and holding. We're doing owner-structured finance deals. In the outside markets, we're doing a lot of owner-structured stuff. We're doing subject tos. We're doing rent-to-owns and tenant placement. So we're, I would say, a family-based business. Been in the business now for over 30 years, and touched a lot of different areas in investing. I first came across Josh probably a few years ago, actually. I first noticed him. And then I recently had him come on the Real Deal Meetup Cruise. And a lot of you guys don't know this. I think Josh was COVID victim number 2, be honest with you guys, because he was the guy on the cruise and he had a fever like you wouldn't believe. And he was ill. Go ahead, Josh.
So Charles, you want to know something really bizarre about the whole experience? I mean, I was sicker than I can ever remember being sick.
Yeah.
This was like in January, I think early January, right? On the cruise. By the way, if you haven't been on the cruise with Charles, you guys got to go. Real Deal Meetup Cruise. I mean, we saw Cozumel, Jamaica. It was phenomenal, and learned about real estate at the same time. I would have to say the last 3 days of the cruise, not so much. I was extremely sick.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff that if you guys are watching CNN with Chris Como at night, the same stuff Chris Como describes, I had all of that, like the crazy sweat, the crazy body aches. I did go through to the spa though throughout the whole thing, which is apparently what Chris Como was being told to do, and it's helped a lot.
Exactly. So like I said, we was blessed to be able to come back after all of that, and when everything hit was March, when it really hit the fan.
Yeah.
And what was your business like before? Because this is about before, during, and after. What was your business like before COVID-19?
So before COVID-19, I mean, just like a lot of probably everybody in the audience today, I'm a real estate cycles type guy. I study the market cycles. And if you study the market cycles, I mean, there's no question in my mind in Northern Virginia, we were in the, mid to late part of the expansion cycle in Northern Virginia. I mean, construction was full on. People were feeling really confident. There was more buyers in the market than sellers. Stuff was selling in 2 days or less, or even before it even got completed in our business. At the same token, I mean, deals were hard to find. Deals were, competitive to buy. You had 10 or 12 offers on every project that you're looking at. And we were doing 8 to 10 new builds at a time, and we were feeling really confident about it. And you want to talk about like what happened since then, Charles, or?
Well, I want to expand a little bit about that, because we've talked about how it was in your market. In our market, what we were doing back before COVID-19, we were somewhere around 8 to 12 deals a month. Now, like I said, we do a diversity of deals. We do from owner-structured financing all the way up to rehabbing and wholesaling. And at the point in time, I know you guys talk about the hot areas you deal with in Virginia. We were dealing a lot with the Baltimore County region, as well as a lot of stuff in Baltimore City, and just basically crushing it. And the key that we had in place, what was really making the difference for us, was the fact that the market dictated that every seller, every buyer had their own place laid out. There was no fear. There was no economic issues that you could speak of that really allow people to say, okay, now I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that. And where you're at right now, Josh, you guys was doing, you said 8 to 10 builds. Mm-hmm. What really changed at that point when March really got here? What was that issue that really made you say, okay, something's going on here?
I mean, all aspects of the market. I mean, the more you read into what's going on in the market right now, it's real estate always comes back to jobs and credit, ability to obtain credit. And credit was so cheap and so accessible up until even a month ago. And our employment rate, for example, in Washington, D.C. metro region, our unemployment rate was 2.8%. That's like a 50-year low. So you had people really well employed, making good money, able to access really cheap credit very easily. The guidelines for financing were very easy to get through. And then all of a sudden, both on the retail and the investor side of lending, everything started to go south. I mean, since COVID-19 hit, we saw unemployment spike. I think it was in the first week, it was like 5 million people were unemployed nationwide.
Exactly.
And it doubled to 10 within another week. At the same time, governments pumping trillions of dollars of, QE money out into the economy. And you're getting these secondary effects where mortgage servicers are getting caught holding the bag on mortgage moratoriums. You're getting mortgage companies who are originating debt who can't sell the debt off. They're losing money because when they sell that debt, they also usually short that debt into the marketplace, and those shorts are going belly up. So you see the mortgage business becomes like in shambles. And as a byproduct of that, I mean, we had buyers that in the middle of the transaction lost their jobs. We had buyers in the middle of the transaction that could no longer qualify for the more stringent financing requirements, the lower DTIs, the higher credit ratios, higher credit scores. You start to see all these different effects, which real estate's always influenced by jobs and credit. And you started to see those two things start to go really south.
And one of the things that really is prevalent right now is the fact that a lot of people depended upon, especially developers, the supply chain that came from China. And there was a complete kink in that chain that has caused a ripple effect, just like you just mentioned. I saw something yesterday, I think it was, where the amount of houses that came on the market between this week and the same week last month was almost 60% less. So people are just holding their opportunities until the better time comes. Now, the question is, when will that better time come? We've had a couple of deals that have fell out of bed over the last couple of weeks. And just before I continue down this point, I want to thank all you guys that are tuning into all the different networks. Deborah, thank you for being on. Ern, remember, guys, this is all about a discussion of what's happening now. If you have any questions for either Josh or myself, don't hesitate to bring those questions into the actual comment section of whatever network you're watching. We will definitely get at your questions. Kay, thank you for tuning in. Richard, Lanny, thank you. Eddie, thank you for being on the broadcast. My man, Minion, Elise, thank you for being on the broadcast. We appreciate you guys taking time out this afternoon. Lawrence, thank you. Brian, thank you. We are definitely glad that you guys made it on this broadcast this afternoon. Now,
Charles, I mean, on that point with the supply chains, I mean, we personally saw that as well. I mean, I think it was about a week and a half ago. If you guys are familiar with like OSB sheathing, we source our inventory from a variety of suppliers. We saw in a matter of like 2 days, about a week and a half ago, OSB sheathing spiked from like what we pay $7 a sheet. To some suppliers, it was like $17 a sheet for the same thing. There was a lot of volatility in the supply chain about a week and a half ago. We've seen some of that sort of stabilize in the last few days, but I mean, there's still uncertainty out there. Like you said, stuff from China, like lighting fixtures. A lot of things are coming from China, flooring, cabinets in many cases. So we've always had a lot of more domestic product in our houses, but if you're a developer who's relied strictly on Chinese import stuff, there might be a lot of issues there.
Now, I know what you guys are probably saying. What's up with the hats? I didn't know Josh was going to wear a hat today. I saw him on his hat. He had a hat on the other broadcast. He did a live stream a couple of days ago. And I just said, okay, well, I'm going to put on my hat today. But, I mean, my hat has a temperature gauge on it. So I just want to let you guys know I don't have a fever. So I'm just letting you know that my hat is safe. It's safe hair gear. I'm not sure. What's your hat say, Josh?
Real Flip Formula.
Ah, Josh. Always be marketing. There you go.
Always, man.
Absolutely. Thank you for being on the broadcast, Internal. Thank you for being on the podcast, Tony. Cynthia, we appreciate you guys. Don't forget, bring those questions out there. We really, really appreciate the questions. Greg asks, Josh, what is it that you're doing now differently than what you were doing previously?
So to be honest with you, I've been in this business for 12 years, correct? So I saw the worst of the market in 2008. I saw, like, when I started in this business, unlike a lot of folks who, got in during the high times, last 4 or 5 years, I saw and felt what a down market, feels like. So in 2008, 2009, I mean, we were experiencing, in many cases, 1% price drops a month on product. And so, to be honest with our viewers today, if you've gone through that experience before as a developer, rehabber, investor, it doesn't matter how great the market becomes, you always remember that in the back of your mind, sort of like my grandparents who remembered the Great Depression. So even though times were good the last 4, 5, 6 years, we created a model at DC First Properties that in the back of my mind was always built to last in times like this that we're experiencing today. And what do I mean by that? I mean that in the areas that we build, we do a very niche product build that's, generally speaking, under $1 million. Mm-hmm. Right now, with the volatility in the mortgage market, a conforming loan, for those who don't know, in the DC region, as far as I know, it's still 762, 500. So that means if conforming loans are still going to be widely available, the price point at which people are going to want to really buy who have a job and are still making decent money is probably going to be up to about 950 to $1 million or less until the mortgage market starts to rebound. So our business was built only to focus on under $1 million new construction. Anything over that, I feel like anything over 1.2 right now is going to have an issue because financing is going to be tight for a while. As far as locations, our locations, even like 5, 6, 8 years ago, were chosen to be, recession proof to what we're all seeing right now. And what I mean by that is that, we're looking in areas that are more stable. If you go back to 2008 or 9, places like Arlington County, other than maybe parts of South Arlington, had no effect at all in the housing market from that financial recession in 2008 and 9. If anything, most of Arlington went up 1 to 3% a year, even through the depths of the Great Recession. So we're going, if anything, the only thing that we've changed today from a month ago, we're going even more all in to those greater areas. Like we don't do a lot in Arlington the last 2 or 3, 4 years now, but I feel like right now those deals are now becoming accessible to us, whereas they weren't a month ago. So we're looking at even the same locations we're doing currently, as well as even better locations that previously we were locked out of.
You just made a great point a little bit earlier in what you just said. The key for us in the markets that we're in, we're at that 225 to 300 price point. And for those people that are in that medium to low price point, the market, as far as availability, sure, there has been a dip in what's available out there right now, but people are still buying in those price points, in that low to medium price points. I see the biggest issue in the higher, above $1 million price points. So I agree with you 100%. It's also all about good deals. Good deals are okay, but great deals is what's closing. So you can have a good deal, and you're going to find that that good deal may not look so attractive to your lenders that are out there right now. They want to see the great deals. They want to see the opportunities where they know it's a home run, as opposed to something that maybe would have been something they would have thought about. Now they're not even thinking about it anymore. It's got to be a great deal before they pull the trigger. Would you agree?
100%. I mean, at the end of the day, what a lot of people don't know the term negative leverage. Negative leverage means that you borrow so much debt that when you hit a downturn, that debt ends up being, counterproductive to you. It actually accelerates your losses. So, I mean, you got to get a great deal. You got to go in with, decent liquidity on that deal. And I think you have to have multiple exit strategies for the deal. So, for example, like for us, it's getting a great deal today, which it's always been. It's going into great locations. And it's also having that multiple exit strategy. So, for example, we really like Virginia because personally, we don't have Section 8 rentals, although I think Section 8 rentals, I've heard great things about them. As a landlord here in Virginia, the stuff that we do hold, Our tenants have always been phenomenal. And the second thing is Virginia is a very pro-landlord state. So if we're buying, for example, a deal right now in Arlington, we can either wholesale it, renovate it, or worst case, we'll just hold it and we'll know that we have, a buy and hold in an area that's, going to hold its value and have a good tenant in place while it's doing so. I think those are some of the keys that we're looking at.
I agree with you. And Ulysses asked the question, what advice would you give to a new investor that's out here today that's trying to figure out their actual path in today's market?
Charles, I mean, you can answer this as good as I can. I think if I were you guys, I would align with somebody who's been in the game for at least 10 years. And I think, call Charles up, pick his brain.
Don't just call Charles up. There's a lot of people you can call. I think you're touching on a point that I really want to bring up, which is you got to know your team. You got to make sure that your team is out there right now. So you got to reevaluate your whole current position. If you have X amount of lenders out there, if you have X amount of contractors out there, if you have title companies you're working with, if you have mentors that you're working with, you want to know who is doing what right now, because that's going to be the key. People that are actually doing it right now, and then you just said the magic word, Josh, bounce off of them. Find out what they're doing, how they're doing it, and just basically piggyback. We all know the saying that success leaves footprints. There's a lot of footprints out there that's still doing business. Seek those footprints. Find out who's doing what title company is still working, what actual lender is still working, what actual agent is still working, what actual companies are still working, and just go with the flow of what's happening.
Charles, I agree with everything you just said. I would mention one thing to add to that.
Mm-hmm.
I would say, and a lot of you might have read this recently, but in the hard money lending space for the last 5 or 6 years, since 2015, 90% of the money that flowed into hard money loans, which a lot of people don't realize, came from Wall Street. That's why your hard money loan rates were 8% and 2 points, extremely low during the last 5, 6 years here. So money was, even for a new investor, a new rehabber, a new buy and hold, money was really cheap and really accessible. Right now, just imagine 90% of the money in the hard money space evaporated almost overnight. We are now back to the same game that we had in 2008, 9, 11, 12, where hard money is no longer 8 and 2, guys. Hard money today is 13% and 2 points.
Mm-hmm.
And it's relationship with that lender. And that lender is getting their money, not from Wall Street. It's either their own money or it's an investor network of theirs of private individuals. That being said, when you underwrite a deal right now, a lot of folks taught in the last 4 or 5 years that, didn't have a lot of experience like Charles has. They were teaching people that you can get a deal and just based on what somebody else pays. If somebody paid $200,000 in that neighborhood, that's the price that you should pay too. That very simplified analysis no longer works in this market. And the buyers that are still out here right now, that 10% buyer pool that's serious and committed, they're not underwriting a deal based on the lowest price right now. They're underwriting a deal the way that deals used to be underwritten. Do the numbers make sense? Does it account for all the risk? What kind of financing is that person going to have? It's not going to be 8 and 2. So you have to align with a more experienced investor who knows how to analyze the deals the right way today. Not the way that deals have been analyzed the last 4 years.
I agree with you. And Ulysses, to go even further down the path of your question about what should a new investor do, we touched a little bit about make sure you go after the deals that have the meat. A lot of strategies that were out there prior to COVID-19 are strategies that you can do, but the question is, are they strategies that's going to get you a motivated seller, or do you have to spend a lot of money to get to that motivated seller? So look at stuff that's in probate. Look at stuff that's in foreclosure. Look at stuff where somebody's being evicted. Stuff where you have a divorce. These are the deals where you have motivation, as opposed to putting up a bandit sign and hoping somebody calls you that's in trouble, or just driving around for dollars and just calling vacant properties. Vacant property could be motivation, but you want to have a vacant property that's motivated, that has a loan on it where the person is behind on their mortgage payment. So now you're talking about deep levels of motivation. motivation. And that's going to be the key right now for new investors. Stay away from the stuff where you're just trying to see if there's a deal there, and concentrate on stuff where you know there's motivated situation.
100% agree with that, Charles. I mean, what do you think are the things that a newer investor or like someone who's only been in this game for the last 4 or 5 years could focus on
Well,
in
I
today's
think,
market?
yeah, a lot of people are caught behind that. I'm going to do this. You already know that you can't do just that. We've had a discussion about that your business have to be congruent. In other words, if you're wholesaling and you're calling people, you also got to be out there marketing. You also have to be following the leads that already came into your system. It can't be stagnant doing one thing at a time. So you have to have a pipeline in place where all your cylinders is moving at the same time, and you're able to generate leads, also able to negotiate, also able to market, also able to close. And that's how you're going to be basically making in this business right now.
100% agree with that, Charles. I mean, I think the other thing is that a lot of folks somehow think that real estate's like a lot of other investments, like the stock market. People think that, especially newer investors, they think that, if the stock market falls 30% or 35% in 3 weeks, that the real estate market can do the same. Real estate just doesn't work like that. Real estate's more of like a longer moving average. So, I mean, I remember in the Great Recession, at its worst in 50 years in the DC region, I mean, we were dropping 1% a month. And so you have to, as an investor, sort of account for the risk of the deal. How long are you going to hold it? If you do hold it longer than even a year, for example, what are you going to do with it? How does that look? If you can sort of account for the risk, or like really structure how the deal looks, short term and long term, that's going to help you sort of determine, is it really a deal or not, I think.
I agree, my friend. I agree. Next question comes from Gregory, who's interested in wholesaling, but it is all I know. Should I focus on starting out? What strategy should Gregory focus on as a new investor starting out right now?
I would say this, Charles. We're seeing something right now that maybe nobody has ever seen. We have all these folks that are homeowners applying for mortgage moratoriums. We have all these landlords who haven't been able to get their rent because of skyrocketing unemployment. So the number of motivated sellers out there right now in this marketplace is, probably astronomical. I don't know what you think of that.
Yes, I agree with you 100%. I think that there's going to be a large amount of people out there, but there's also going to be even a larger amount of people looking to see what's going on, holding back, not deciding is they going to sell right now. I saw something today on Google Trends where the keyword sell my home has dropped from an 85 ranking to a 65 ranking. And what does that mean? That a large portion of the people are no longer searching for the term sell my house or sell my home or sell my property. They're holding back because they're afraid of what's going on in this issue, in this actual community that's going on right now with COVID-19. And keep this in mind. COVID-19 has nothing to do with 2008 to the sense of it was a banking issue. Right now, we're having a consumer confidence issue. It's not a banking issue yet. I'm going to say yet, because just like Josh said earlier, it's going to trickle down. It may become one with all the issues that's going on with lenders and going on with the mortgages not being able to be paid by homeowners and renters not being able trickling up to the actual landlords and so on.
I agree with that, Charles. I mean, at the end of the day, like your viewer wants to know what they should do right now, I would have to say, like, start making the phone calls. Start calling those independent landlords that own, 1 to 10 or 20 units. Start making the calls to homeowners that have maybe dinged up properties. The one thing different today than from 2008 or 9 is that the average homeowner today has about 50% equity in their property. In 2008 or 9, most homeowners are upside down. You had to negotiate a short sale with the lender.
Right.
Today, homeowners have equity, but, if they don't have a job or their tenant doesn't have a job, then there could be a huge motivation there that, you can step in and help solve their problem. So I would start making the phone calls, do what your competition is not right now. Everyone has stepped down their game by a factor of 10, step your game up by a factor of 10. If you're out in this marketplace actively working, you're going to make good money helping other people.
And that's the key. That's the key. Now, what tools? Let's talk about right now. What are some of the tools, Josh, that your company is using right now in this marketplace to generate leads? What tools are you guys working with?
So I'd have to tell you this, Charles, like we've been doing direct mail consistently for years now. And what we started to notice was our numbers, because as a business, you should always be tracking your KPIs.
Right.
And we were seeing that there was a significant fall off in the response rates to our letters that were going out. So like a lot of folks were like, maybe this is the wrong time to be sending this type of marketing right now. People, maybe they don't want to hear about sell my house fast right now or sell it as is. Maybe that's not the message people want to hear. And maybe, people are scared right now. It doesn't matter if you own real estate or you're not. Like a lot of folks are just, the fear levels in an extreme high. So we realized that, direct mail, maybe that's a waste of our marketing right now. We are currently reaching out to our current pipeline of people in our Podio CRM that expressed interest in the past of selling. We're following up with those people right now to see can a deal be done. And people that weren't previously motivated are now becoming a much higher level of motivated. In addition, what we're looking at doing at the moment is setting up a bunch of callers, cold callers, with the right sort of message. And that message is going to be more like, we understand that, there's a significant impact in the marketplace. Have you thought about selling? If you haven't, try to feel out what the situation with that homeowner is or that owner is and see if there's a way we can help them.
And I think you're absolutely correct in that practice because that's exactly what we're doing. One of the things that we've started implementing is the fact that we understand what's going on right now, but we want to be that person you come to do business with when you feel better, when your situation gets better. And that's the key to the conversation now. It's not about, hey, sell me your house right now. It's sell me your house when you're ready because we want to be the person you reach out to.
I agree with that, Charles, 100%. Actually, a question I had for you. I don't know if you've seen this in your business, but a lot of folks are telling me, like, just like we're saying direct mail doesn't work right now, a lot of experienced investors in the DMV are telling me, text messaging, those response rates have fallen off. RVMs, those response rates have fallen off. That's why we were thinking more of a personalized, cold caller approach, just to get them on the phone and have a conversation. What are you seeing, Charles, on that side?
In the last 6 months, I've seen the actual saturation of cold calling, saturation of text messaging, and saturation of RVM. Do I think it has a direct effect on what's going on right now? I think it was a progression that was already happening, and right now, COVID-19 is accentuating it. So yes, I absolutely see it, but I think it's not more because of COVID-19. I just think it's more of a saturation. Every guru is saying cold call. Every guru is saying RVM. Every guru is saying text message. So yes, I agree with you 100%. COVID-19 has had an effect on those main marketing strategies. And I think that you hit it right on the nail when you mentioned following up on the leads that had came through that may have came through the system that was a no at a month ago, 2 months ago, or 3 months ago, and just basically regurgitating what you've already had in place. So yes, there is an issue right now with the KPI regarding those different platforms. Does it mean that I'm going to stop doing it? No. But what it does mean is that we have to be more cognizant of what's working right now and what's not working, which brings me to the question of KPI. How are you monitoring your business to know, hey, is it a direct effect because of what's happening with COVID, or is there an actual issue with the tool or system that you're using? Maybe it's no longer working like it used to.
So we have a virtual assistant that tracks all of our KPIs through, we have different tracking numbers in CallRail. I think we have like 35 different tracking numbers in CallRail, depending on the campaigns.
Nice.
And we just saw like a massive fall off to almost nothing from all of our targeted direct mail pieces, which if you're doing that for, 4 or 5 years now consistently, and you're getting nothing for a given 4 to 6 week period, something's going on dramatically in the market.
And that's something for you guys is basically the temperature, where the actual economy is at, and where the consumer confidence is at.
I think, Charles, you're fighting a couple things though right now. I mean, so my number one lead source today, if your listeners are paying attention here, my number one lead source, if I was an investor right now, I would be focusing on vacant houses. I'd be going after vacant houses right now at this moment, because the other deals are great. You can groom them along, but every jurisdiction right now has, eviction delays. Here in Virginia, you can't evict anyone until starting, I think, May 1st at the earliest, and that might get pushed back because the entire state of Virginia is under a quarantine until June 10.
Right.
So if you got a property that has a tenant in there that needs to be taken out of there, it's been an issue for that landlord for a while. That's not happening anytime soon. The other issue is that people are going to have a harder time moving while we still have a quarantine going on. So, the deals that we've done this month, just to give an example, almost every single one has been a vacant property. I don't know how you feel about that, Charles, or what are your thoughts?
I think that in regards to the vacant properties, or about what you just said.
What kind of leads would you tell folks that they should really focus on right now? I mean, you can nurture some of these deals for a longer time frame, but stuff you could close like this minute.
Well, that's the key, closing this minute, and it goes back to the validity of your team. Excuse me, your buyers, your sellers, your rehabbers, and so on. Who is out there doing what? So you could take two approaches, and you hit it right on the nail. One of the approaches could be you lead that engine right down the path or the direction that you want to take it. The other approaches could be, well, I know this buyer's interested in this area. Well, I'm going to deal with this area. I know this person is interested in here. I know they're still doing business in this area. I'm going to deal with that area. So you can take a more surgical approach. And to me, knowing who you have on your team and taking that surgical approach is going to be the best way for that new investor to make money to inspect. Know who your buyers are. Go ahead.
Charles, you just reminded me of something. So, I mean, what you saw in this massive expansion cycle that we all felt, the last few years, was speculative buyers were everywhere. You saw, the market was going like that, and you saw all these people, if the property's worth $350, it needs $20K work, they're willing to pay like $300. You saw people way overpaying for properties that didn't pencil. The numbers didn't make any sense. And these wholesalers, for example, were sending out deals to thousands of buyers at a time. None of those deals penciled. I'm buying for $285 and it's worth $385 with 50, 60K repairs. And that is over at the moment. Like you said, Charles, you're back to the good old days of relationship building with the serious buyer, finding what the serious buyer wants, seeing what the numbers they're looking for are, and going after deals for those people. More of a relationship driven business.
Correct. Dorsey has a question. This is going to be a good one. I'm a new investor. I bought a multifamily and I hold it with tenants in early March. It has a lot of equity in it. What should I do? Should I pull that equity out and invest it in other properties or not?
Say that question one more time.
New investor bought a property that has a lot of equity, multifamily property.
Okay.
And it has a lot of equity in it. And they're trying to decide, is now a good time to pull it out? And if so, what should they do when they pull the money out of it?
How much equity are we talking? And what kind of debt? And then what kind of debt would they take?
Yeah, they didn't say what kind of equity. Dorsey, if you hear this question, the question is how much equity you have in it. I think they generalized it to they have a lot of equity and they want to know, should they pull it out and reinvest or what?
I would honestly say it depends on location, but Google the term negative leverage, because negative leverage is something that nobody wants to face. Leverage can be great when the market's either rising or you got a great deal, but you over leverage a property and suddenly it's like a falling knife. So let me give you an example. Like if you have a property where you had 50% equity today and you took a credit line out to 90%, let's say property values drop in the next 12 or 24 months and the banks get really stressed. All of a sudden you got what's called a margin call, or we're calling your HELOC due up until a certain amount. You got to bring me that cash immediately to pay it down. If a lender has a threshold of like 70% or 80% LTV and you've exceeded that for the current valuation of the property, you might be in a very big issue right there. I would be very hesitant to over leverage your properties at the moment. It would also depend on the location and situation, though.
And I think it also depends on the occupancy, where you're at in regards to the cash flow in relationship to what you're pulling out and what your numbers are going to look like. Because if your cash flow is heavily dependent upon market rate tenants, you could be in trouble. Uh,
Right.
right now, a lot of investors are leaning their whole, or should I say, they're banking their whole investment portfolio on the fact that Section 8 and subsidized housing hasn't really being an issue because of what's happening. So if you are in a situation where you leverage with market rate tenants and you have very little subsidized housing, man, you could be in trouble if you pull all that money out. Now, go ahead.
I would say this, Charles. I mean, like, I think the folks who are going to weather this storm, and none of us are fortune tellers, none of us can tell you how long this goes or how deep it goes. But at the end of the day, I think the folks who are going to weather this storm are the folks that have a lot of liquidity and have a lot of equity. The folks who are over leveraged could potentially come over under a falling knife. I mean, I think that the folks who are well positioned with longer term loans locked in have less risk in this market right now.
Yeah,
I
and
mean, myself included, I got 2 tenants right now who didn't pay the rent last month and may not be able to pay the rent for the next 3 months because they've lost their jobs. And this is here in Fairfax County in Northern Virginia. So, I mean, just imagine if you're over leveraged on a property and your tenants lose their jobs and can't pay you, and the bank's calling, part of that note due because you've exceeded their threshold on loan to value. It's just not going to be a good situation for you as an owner or
yeah,
an
and
operator.
Dorsey says he has over $200,000 in equity.
I would analyze your current financial situation and be very cognizant about what could happen. Most banks don't like to be above, even when financing is really tight in a really tight financial market like 2008 or 9, banks don't want to be above 70% LTV in general. You start taking a HELOC out beyond 70% and the property values drop, be prepared to bring that money to the bank. I know a lot of friends of mine got wiped out in 08 and 09 because of what they call margin calls. So
Mm-hmm.
I would just be very, proactive in your planning and plan for worst case scenarios.
Leslie wants to know, what do you think is going to happen in regards to the Midwest markets like Kansas and Missouri?
I don't know if you want to take that question, Charles, or you want me to.
Yeah, I'll give it a tackle. I think there's going to be a situation where it's going to be all dependent upon how far west or how deep does this COVID-19 pandemic touch your area. Because if everybody goes through the same issues, I think the cause and effect is going to be the same. I don't think it's going to be any difference. The only difference is going to be whether or not your area has a different cause and effect based on stay in shelter or not having it in place. I know right now the Midwest is, I'm not going to say calm, but it's not as bad as it is on the West Coast and on the East Coast right now. So will that change? If it changes, I think you're going to be in the same boat just like we've been discussing with everybody else. It's going to be a situation where liquid is going to be king, and those of you that have the equity, those of you that have the cash flow are going to be the ones that's going to be on top of the mountain.
Charles, I'd have to say this, like, even before COVID-19 happened, you look at the market cycles and the East and West Coasts are generally speaking more volatile markets. They go up really quickly, they come down really quickly. The Midwest markets tend to be more stable. They're more like cash flow driven. The price point doesn't, fluctuate as much in most of those markets. Before COVID-19 even broke, I would say if you looked at the 4 cycles of the real estate market, there's no question we were in like what you call late seller phase 1. And in a matter of about 3 weeks, we probably transitioned from late seller phase 1 to the middle of seller phase 2, where all of a sudden our buyer pool diminished dramatically, and we now have in many areas of the country more sellers than we do buyers. How does that impact the Midwest? I would have to say that the Midwest price points in general don't tend to fluctuate as much, but what we do have right now is a major job problem. And I would be looking at, what is the job base of the properties that you're looking to buy. I think there's no question that no matter what happens, how we come out of this health issue, there's a certain percentage of the GDP that's not coming back, at least not for a while. And I think those areas that are going to be hurt, dramatically are everything from, hospitality, retail, fitness. Um, a lot of the lower wage jobs are going to be dramatically impacted. And I think you have to look at the properties you're potentially buying and determine if the people who would use those properties, whether buy or rent, are going to have a severe impact from the potential fallout of jobs right now.
Hey, I want to get a temperature of all you who are out there right now. If you think this is some good information, give us some thumbs up, give us some yay yay, give us some hop hop, give us all those emojis. Let us know what you think of the conversation so far, because we got some more to go, and I think I want to hear from you guys. We're going to continue as soon as we hear from you. What do you think? How we're going so far? Are you enjoying this conversation? You liking it? You loving it? Heart it up, like it up, all that good stuff. Let's see. Next question. Gregory. Actually, thank you, Cynthia. Thank you, Martin. Thank you, Denise. Thank you, Leslie. John, appreciate it. Mike, thank you. Cynthia, thank you. Aaron, Marcus, thank you so much on Facebook, Instagram. Thank you, guys. We appreciate the love, the hearts. Man, killing me softly. Nicole, thank you.
So Charles, what would you tell your viewers today who are kind of sitting on the sidelines and they're not sure what to do? What would you convince them to just get out there and make some magic happen here? Like, what would be your?
I think it boils down to what we said earlier, Josh.
Okay.
Be very selective. Be strategic in your process of what you're doing. Don't get sucked up in a day full of I don't know what to do next. Plan, organize, get structured. Now is not the time to figure out which Netflix series you're going to watch. Now is the time to figure out, okay, what is my process going to look like at 9, 10, 11, 12, 5? So don't think in terms of, oh, now I have all this opportunity to catch up on all these shows. No, you have all this opportunity to work on your business, work on your process, make sure your systems are working, and most importantly, know your numbers. So that's the most important thing you should be doing right now. Mike wants to know, and this is something that we talked about earlier, Josh. Mike wants to know, when we talk about good deals, what are the LTVs we should be pulling the trigger on when we're talking about rentals or we're talking about flipping rehab deals? What are the good numbers, or should I say the great numbers, that to say, yes, pull the trigger on that?
So I want to tell you guys something that I learned in 2008, because when I was new in those years, just like maybe a lot of your viewers today, I didn't know what a good deal looked like. I didn't know how low this market could drop. All these things concern me. Like, imagine if you're looking at properties in 2008 and they're 250,000 and the next month they're 225 and going down. When do you pull the trigger? And at some point, what I realized looking back on everything today is that rent ratios, in my mind, is what tells you whether to pull the trigger or not, because that's as low as a property, as low as a market will go. Let me give you an example of that. So back in 2008, properties were renting for about $1,800 a month, a Rambler, and property values had dropped to about 300,000 or less. If the way to compute a rent ratio, if you guys don't know, you take the monthly rent, which was 1,800, you multiply by 12. I don't have a calculator in front of me, but whatever that number is, 1,800 a month rent times 12, that's the annual rent. Multiply that times 13. In Northern Virginia and Fairfax County, if you look back historically the last 50 years, stuff in good locations doesn't drop usually below that number. So whatever the monthly rent is, times 12, times 13, that's as low as it's probably ever going to go, even in the worst recession. So I would take the market you're looking at and figure out historically what that rent ratio was for that market. For a single family house or townhouse or condo, it's going to work beautifully. That's going to give you confidence to know that your offer's, not too high, that you're protecting yourself. Beyond that, yeah, we're also looking at loan to value as well. If it's something where we're going to be in and out in 12 months or less, I know as a developer that I'm not going to take, if it's a rehab, I'm not going to take more than 6 to 8 months to get in and out. If it's a new construction, I'm not going to take more than 12 months to get in and out. Let's bake in a 10% margin beyond what we had previously in our deals a month ago. So instead of doing deals that have a 12 or 13% margin, let's do stuff that has a 20% plus margin to make sure that we're safe. There's ways to hedge the risk when you're buying a deal. And I think, again, it's going to come down to, aligning yourself with guys like Charles. You can reach out to us, get aligned with the right people who have experience.
Excellent.
Charles, would you agree with that, or
I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. In Baltimore City, Baltimore County, the regions that we're in Baltimore and Maryland, I think that you're absolutely 100% correct. The medium to low income housing area, I don't think we're going to be hit with the drop in equity, the drop in value that we was in 2008. I think because, like I mentioned earlier, right now it's a matter of consumer confidence and not a matter of money availability. Could it get there? Maybe, but I just think that what was learned from 2008, and I know I may have a little bit more faith in our higher ups than a lot of you guys may have, but I don't think anyone will let what happened in 2008 be the situation that's going to occur right now behind what's going on. And I don't think the consumer's mindset is in that same mindset it was in 2008. Everybody in no one could get money in 8. That's not the situation right now. The situation right now is no one believed that they should spend money. Once that mindset changes, okay, now I can go out and spend. Now I can go out and go to a restaurant. Now I can go out and go back to the movies. Now I can go out and go look at a house. Now I can go out and watch a sporting event. Once that mindset changes, I don't think that there's going to be an issue regarding the valuation dropping 40, 50%, 60% like it did in 2008.
Charles, one thing I would add to that, because I'm just trying to put in perspective like what I would be thinking if I was to go back 10 years and be in this moment right now. If you guys are a wholesaler out there, you have to start to think in terms of who your end user is now and develop, like Charles said earlier, get aligned with the right buyers who are still active right now. So if you're a wholesaler, the deal that you're looking at right now, is that something that your end buyer is going to renovate and sell? Are the comps pretty strong? Is it still moving right now? Or is there still demand in that segment of the market right now? Or is it something that they're going to be stuck renting it out? And if so, what's that rent rate going to look like? I know looking back that if it's something that can be renovated and sold right now, you have to put yourself in the shoes of the buyer, the renovator who's buying from you. Are they going to be able to sell that, in 6 months and move it quickly? Or is it going to be something that sits on the market for a little bit? Is there going to be that additional holding cost? Are they going to have to potentially reduce the price 5 or 10% to get it moved? Are they going to have to give buyer agent bonuses? Are they going to have to build a product that's better than everything else currently for a little bit higher costs in order to get it moved? So you got to have to start to put yourself in the shoes of your end buyer and see what they're going to have to go through. And if you do all those things, it's going to give you an idea like what kind of price point you're talking about that you're going to have to get that deal moved at. To give you perspective, we've done about 4 wholesale deals this month, and the same numbers that we would have got like a month ago today, we're probably about 10% lower on the exit to our end user. So the stuff that we're moving to other people, we're about 10% lower today. And they're still good deals. We're still moving them fairly quick, 5 to 14 days. But you're going to have to sort of think about who the end user is and what they're going to have to go through with that property and still make a win-win.
Which brings us to the final segment of this conversation. After COVID-19, what do you think is going to be the temperature of the economy, of pricing after this is all over?
Charles, I've been talking too much. You got to answer this one.
Okay. Hey, no problem at all. I think that it's going to be a boom for those investors that are liquid. For those investors that have decided, okay, I'm ready to pull the trigger. And when that time comes to pull the trigger, I think there's going to be a large portion of bank foreclosures. There's going to be a large opportunities in short sales. There's going to be a large opportunities in probate. There's going to be a large opportunity in pre-foreclosures. And there's going to be a large opportunity in multifamily. I think there's going to be an overflow of opportunities for those individuals that can do deal structuring, such as creative deal structuring as well. So the short answer to what I'm going to say is that there's going to be huge opportunities for those individuals that have money and that can be creative.
I 100% agree with that, Charles, on all accounts. I think multifamily will definitely be one of the areas or commercial that you can just jump in. I think in the meantime, I think all of us need to figure out, how do you make money in that short term? I think the only real unknown right now is what is the government's response going to be,
Right.
and how long is that going to delay the process out? Are we talking about potential buyer's market in 12 months from now or 2 years from now? It's going to come down to how long these banks hold on to the tape. They played games like that in 2008 where they're pumping the stuff from the tape out really slowly to, prop the values up. There's a lot of sort of unknowns here, but I do think you're right overall. I think as a market, we were trending that way anyways before COVID-19. And I think this sort of just accelerated the process. But in the meantime, I think you're going to have to sort of figure out how to do deals and make money without taking on a huge risk. And maybe that means you're getting in and out shortly in good markets, in robust areas of the market.
Man, can you believe an hour has already gone by?
Charles, before we wrap this up, can you give guys an idea or viewers an idea of, like, I know you're so big on virtual, and now we're like, if you guys don't know, Charles is the master of a virtual office. So if you guys, we're all forced to do virtual right now. It doesn't matter who you were before COVID-19. Virtual is what everybody's forced to do right now. So Charles, with that being said, like, I'm struggling with it myself right now. What advice would you give someone to elevate their team and be more productive even, or what tools would you use virtually?
Absolutely. We started going virtual. Actually, 2008 caused my whole business to take a whole different mindset, because back before I was in 2007, 2008, early 2009, I had a big old office in downtown Baltimore. And because of what happened with the mortgage meltdown, I decided I had to figure out a way to cut overhead. And that's when I really started understanding, studying, and learning about going virtual. And I've been virtual now to my whole office probably for the last 10 years. So I got a good understanding of the processes that's in place and how things should be done. The key to going virtual is the mindset. That's the most important thing, because you can't have the mindset of, I can go to work anytime I want to. No. The key to being successful in doing virtual investing or just having a virtual business is making sure you have structure in place that does not even look like a virtual business. It's a business. So first thing I would tell you is get away from that whole, I have a virtual business. You have a business. It just happens to be internet based. It just happens to use a lot of technology that's virtual based. So step number one, structure. Build out what your day, your week, your month, and your business should look like. Step number two, it's all about, should I be one person, a solopreneur, or do I need to have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people in the business? That's all a product of what your budget looks like, and it's also a product of your knowledge. So how do we go through that one person wearing all the hats to having lead manager, having an outsourcing manager, having a individual that we have in our team, a software developer, a website developer, and all of those are virtual in my business. And my process looks like this, and this is what my day looks like. From 5 o'clock a.m. to 5:30, I get up in the morning. 5:30 to 6:30, I'm talking to my team overseas by way of Skype, and we're doing Zoom meetings whenever necessary. We have to go dig deep into something. So I did start off with my whole managing crew between 6:30 and 7 o'clock in the morning. Every morning, I'm talking to those individuals. From 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock, I'm at the process right now where I'm dealing with my consulting clients, and we're putting out fires with my lead managers of what's happening in regards to the local stuff in the Maryland, DC, the Houston, Ohio, and Jacksonville market. My day usually ends at 3. I have a meeting at the end of my day around 2:30. We have a meeting with my project managers about what happened that day. And the reason why I set my business up like this, because for me, family time is all important. That's the most important thing for me. My wife gets from her working at the hospital. Right now, this is where she's at. She gets off at 3. So I make sure that my day ends at the time when she gets off from work. How we set everything up, we use tools like Podio. We use tools like Clipfolio for our actual KPIs. We use CallRail, of course. We use Skype. We use all, I can even do a whole webinar on the tools and the systems that we have in place to run our business. But the most important thing, and it's going back to the main question you asked, Josh, is how do you set up your business? The most important thing that you could create for your business is a standard operating procedure. And a standard operating procedure that's based off of someone taking over that actual process or that actual thing. So that's the most important thing I could tell you. Set up your business so that every aspect of your business is compartmentalized to a point where it's written, it's videoed, it's audioed, and then at that point, now you're able to take that thing and send it over to someone else once that business has a 6-month, a 12-month, an 18-month record of stability. That's the short answer.
That makes sense, Charles. Before we wrap this up, I want to ask you, so on your acquisition side, is there anything that you've changed recently on the acquisition side that you're doing differently from like a month ago, or the way you look at the numbers?
The biggest thing is that we're not having a conversation with our sellers unless we're on the phone with our sellers for at least 10 minutes or more. That's one of the things. The other aspect of it is it's no longer, and it never was about pushing to get the house. But the key now is bringing in the conversation is more and more that we're ready to do business when you are. That's the key. It's not about getting in there and wanting to buy the house. It's about getting in there and how can we help you in this current situation. I'm having to deal with more of people wanting to do things digitally, which was something that we were doing for years. I'm getting sellers now that's willing to do DocuSigns. I'm getting sellers now that want to meet with the door unlocked and let you come into property while they're out in the car waiting for you to go through a walkthrough of properties and so on. So you have to be cognizant of what your seller needs are and be understanding of those needs. It's not about what you want in order to make that deal happen. It's about how you can make that seller more comfortable. And that's the key right now, pushing my people to put that seller in the mindset that we're not here to push you, we're here to help you.
That makes a lot of sense. And finally, I got to ask you, what do you think the biggest challenges are going to be for the next 12 months for like investors like us? What do you see as the biggest challenges?
Consistency. I think the biggest challenge is going to be, okay, right now my profit margins are almost 25% less than what they was 6 months ago. What am I doing wrong? Or better yet, not only what I'm doing wrong, but when is this going to end? So in other words, how do I continue down the path of what I was doing and understand that everything that I was doing wasn't necessarily wrong? It's a product of what's happening in this environment. And am I making the wrong decisions based on my business not working? Or am I making the wrong decision based on the environment of what's happening right now? So having a strong sense of your KPI is the most important thing you should have. And the key right now in moving forward the next 12 months is being consistent, knowing that what you are doing works. You cannot waver from that. You cannot waver from the fact that the real estate industry is and has always been one of the most dynamic industries when it comes to generating wealth. Regardless of what the market is going through, it will still be that way 6 months, 12 months to a certain level. It may not be at the point where it was 2 years ago, but it's still going to be at a profit pulling level that you still be able to make money in.
So last thing for you, Charles. I know a lot of our folks they're still sitting on the couch, they're moping, they're depressed. what are the 3 action items you would tell that person today to, this person could have been successful
Yes.
even a month ago, or they could have been doing nothing a month ago, but what are those 3 things they should do right now after they get off the call?
That's easy. Number one, make sure your business is set up by way of organization. Make sure you have a plan, a daily plan of what you're doing each day. Number two, make sure you reevaluate your whole team every week to make sure they're still out there doing doing that. And number three, make sure you stay in constant contact of individuals who are still doing it. Because one of the biggest issues new investors will have is their lack of confidence. So stay in contact with the people who are still doing it. Use other people's success as motivation to pull you and to drive you. Don't get out there on an island by yourself and not know what's going on in our industry. Reach those individuals, those mentors, those individuals who are successful, like the Joshes, like the Mike Greens, like the Nicole Amazons, like the Valerie Scott. Reach out to those individuals, keep in touch with them who are still doing it right now, because that is going to be the motivation that you're going to feed off in these hard times.
Couldn't agree with that more, Charles. That's a great summary. I don't know if we're out of time here or anything else we should add to this convo.
Any last words you'd like to add, my friend?
If I had to sum it all up, it's sort of like, just like you just said, the dynamic of the market has shifted. So if you were to describe this in like 30 seconds, we went from like all the power was on the seller side to now all the power is on the buyer side. So whereas before it was hard to get a deal, it's going to become easy to get a deal, but hard to sell the deal.
I agree.
So now you're maybe going to focus more attention now on selling the deal than you were maybe even on getting the deal in the coming months. And the other thing is that I talked with Roger a lot about this in the last week or two. You're going to get a lot of buyers who are what we call posers. They're not serious.
Well, not only not serious, but you're also going to get a lot of junk opportunities.
So Charles, what would you tell your viewers about how can I tell I got a serious buyer right here that's actually going to do what they say?
Well, you got to hit them where the pocketbook is at. If you're serious, give me that EMD. Let me see that proof of funds. Let me see that money that you have available. It's not so much of what somebody tells you, it's what the person shows you. That's the key. Everybody 100%. Is a professional buyer on the internet. But are they a professional buyer in their bank account? That's the key.
I couldn't agree with that more. And I would even take that a step further, because the way the lending environment is right now, it's so shaky. If you got a buyer, whether it's on the investor side or retail side, make sure that their lender is going to come through. Like make the call to their lender, go over their loan approval, put in that extra effort that you weren't having to do a month ago, because it could make the difference between a deal and no deal right now.
So Josh, tell everybody what you got coming up, man, so they can tune into what the things you got going on.
So we'll be live 2 weeks from today on a Wednesday at 7:00 at night. And we'll be having our local virtual meetup for DMV deal makers, talking more about the marketplace, talking about, maybe steps that you can do to analyze the deal now that, you weren't doing a month ago. So we might go over like in-depth detail of how do we analyze the deal today. Charles, what do you got coming up?
Well, how can they reach you? How can they get to DMV Deal Makers? Where you guys at?
Go on Facebook, go on meetup.com. Ask to join the group. We got about 5 fantastic admin for our group now. We have a whole leadership board. So somebody will reach out to you. They'll be talking to you, and hopefully you'll become part of our dynamic community here in Northern Virginia. Charles, what do you got coming up?
Well, Monday I got one of my this is an incredible story. Young lady went from 2 deals to 140 units in 2 years.
Oh, wow.
And she's going to talk about how she did it and what the process looked like, to the point where she purchased a 100+ apartment building a week and a half ago, doing what's going on right now. So we're going to do a Duru interview with Dr. Christian Ray, who's actually on the front lines, who's a doctor right now. So she's actually on the front lines doing this at the same time, closing 100-unit apartment buildings.
Wow. Phenomenal.
So that's what we got coming up on Monday, guys. On behalf of myself and my man Josh, never missed a meal, Cohen, we are so happy that you guys are on this broadcast. Thank you, Josh, for tuning in.
Charles, great talking with you as always. It's been a pleasure, man. We got to do this again.
Absolutely, guys. Thank you, everybody who's tuning in from Facebook, from Instagram, from LinkedIn, from Periscope, from Twitch. This is Charles Blair, the Mad Scientist, signing out with my man Josh Cohen. And well, guys, we'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.